like to open the platform for our first speaker. And the first speaker is our first keynote. And remember, I said, yeah, I'm broadcasting live from Molly National Park, 5,000 acres of land. I am surrounded by nature, Mother Nature. And I know Hodan is very much in tune to Mother Nature. And I know that Hodan has got a lot of things to share with us about her experience, her journey, and what she's been through. This woman inspired me. When I met her first, I heard her speak. The minute she opened her mouth, I just say, you know what? This is my sister. This is my sister. That's it. I am adopting, whether she likes it or not, I am adopting her. Whether she likes it or not, I am adopting her. And since that day till now, I'm telling you seriously, Hodan, I'd like to welcome you. I am so pleased that you've been able to make it today. I am pleased. Welcome to the platform. The platform is open to you, and we would love to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Nana. So I just wanted to firstly say thank you all for inviting me. And I am 7,000 kilometers away on the west Cumbria, northern part of England. It's extremely cold, it's grey, lots of hills, so I'm absolutely missing the sun of our motherland. That level of connection doesn't just happen because we have technology. It's primarily happens because of people and the need to connect and the need to exchange. And I have seen even yesterday, we are all around the world discussing and sharing knowledge and expertise. So I'm going to share my slides, but before I do, I have a couple of disclaimers. Today, I'm not going to be talking about process, system, methodology. I am going to be talking about self-reflection and my journey through what I have seen. So I'm not an expert. I'd like to bring the human into the space. The other part of me is I'll be sharing some books along the way, books that have influenced me and have influenced my thinking. I'm not in any shares or anything with them. I don't even know the authors. Mind you, I do stalk one on Twitter quite often. So I'll share that in the chat with Nana later on, so then you can have access to that. One last disclaimer, I name people along the way. These are people who have walked with me in terms of having the right energy, having the spiritual connection. And that's really important if you are a person like me who needs to stand in their truth. So I will share some of that journey with you and how it went. So let me just share my slides, and if you could please let me know if you can see them. I have the share option, so it should be available. I'm going to move it there so that if I do share current slide.
We can see your screen.
Can you see the slide now, Nana?
Yes, you might want to go into like full screen mode.
Oh, okay, so let me switch. Is that better?
Okay, yeah, that's it, that's it.
So
Awesome.
this is a personal reflection of mine, and for about 15 years, I've worked in healthcare, large change, and it's very similar in terms of agility. We are trying to change the way people are thinking and seeing and doing something. And then in the last 5 or 6 years, I've been engaged in working in agility and working in leadership side of things because I'm an exec leadership coach. Now, if you're all thinking, oh my goodness, she doesn't look like she is worked this many years, yes, that is very true. I always say I'm only 20 years and plus. So recently somebody asked me, well, how do you describe your job in a sentence? And how do you describe your career journey? And career journey is something I'm currently exploring again within my organizational psychology. So I thought, yeah, that's interesting. So obviously I write poetry. And so I said to the person I was talking to, I walk with you in the dark until you meet light. And that is literally where I see myself in everything that I do, is I walk with you in the dark until you meet light. So I don't own any of that. And in any change, I never owned anything. I never owned the power or the money or whatever. And in the event that I did give it away and ensure other people took that space. So that is where we're beginning our conversation and our collaboration today. And so when we talk about agility, like any change, it all begins with strategy and knowing that the objective is to solve a challenge. But in the spaces, I'm going to talk about spaces that didn't work and why, and spaces that have worked and why. And that kind of gives you a feel for the ingredients. And so I've gone into spaces where everybody's like, let's do agility. And then it became this sheep dip training. Everybody gets trained. People are counting beans. How many of you have done this? How many of you have done that? Have you got a Jira board? It's fabulous to watch. Human behavior is fascinating. And then you have people in leadership who are rag rating people or rag rating teams. You still are in the red because you haven't achieved this. And this is supposed to be agility space, right? And I walk into meetings and teams are talking about user story phase 1 and user story phase 2. And I think, yes, this is what happens when the whole agenda is being forced into the system and not really understanding what it does and why it's there. The challenges are also still there. So, you're waiting less, moving code to production is still 7 days. Tech debt is still growing. So the problem is no longer the focus. The actual agility practices becomes the focus. And that shouldn't be the case. So the organizations who worked in that space actually demotivated the people that were engaged in agility. And I think I would say we need to have compassion for the leadership that have opted for this option. I think they were either ill-advised, they didn't have the time to really understand the situation. We need to have compassion for them because the train has left the platform. And now it's very hard for somebody to say, we need to stop, we need to reflect. Things aren't how it should be. This is not what we expected. And not because the leaders aren't strong, it's about psychological safety. And it's the risk to their position. And I totally understand that. So that's the pain that happens. And the pain of taking the wrong concept as well. So I had one organization where this manager was coming to me saying, look, I'd like you to help me do user stories. We're rolling out Office 365 and, we're a Scrum team. And you're like, oh, it's so sad because people are getting the wrong messages of agility and are being forced through this agile sausage, as I call it, and it frustrates the hell out of me. But let's have compassion for people that are in that space who do not feel safe to be able to say, stop, we have to turn the ship around and follow the very essence of what agility is we're getting that feedback loop and not taking it in. Ultimately, what I'd like you to know from my experience is that agility is an enabler and not the driver. And so if you're not understanding and you're not seeing the problem you're trying to solve, and agility becomes the driver, then there is no delivery, but an extensive investment on something that's not going to land. And if it lands, by the way, if it lands, and I've seen that, it lands where teams are all doing Jira and the activity is going on and everybody's monitoring them. The minute the Agile coach leaves, there's a meeting and they're like, this team is not delivering, Agile coach, go back in there. And all of a sudden, the Agile coaches are seen as these Gestapo soldiers coming in to fix a team, to get back in line. That is not how it works. And And it's terribly sad to see how people are behaving and becoming part of the system and culture as well. So it's all really about figuring out what it is that is the problem, and it's about culture and structure. It's rarely about process and system or tools. It's really about that. And the practices we need to park. We have intelligent people working in these positions, right? They haven't got this far, not knowing how to work. I think a lot of the time the emphasis is on getting the teams to be agile, when really it's the organization that needs to get its act together to be agile. And that being requires the cultural shift and the silo shift and our structural stuff. So you can ask a team to be agile, but if your financial systems and your governance, your change processes are going to take that long, or your BAU work is culturally, we are only doing it then, it's not going to change. And so culture and structure is priority. So 20% is the doing agile, unfortunately. It's hard for people to figure that out, but 80% is the people doing it, and so the structure and culture. So like I said, I will talk about a book that has influenced me, is Karim Harbert. I'm sure you've all heard about him, The 6 Enablers of Business Agility. I mean, he basically describes the simplicity of the whole thing. He simplifies the conversation to say there are 6 enablers, and we need to be able to consider the 6 enablers in its entirety, and it's not just one area. So the ways of working is what everybody focuses on, but there is issues in terms to be addressed in leadership, in governance, in people engagement, in terms of organizational structure and finance. And all that happens with leadership in mind. I heard a lot about, the need to have a movement and grassroots movement, and that's all fantastic, and that is needed. But the priority here for me, and where I have seen things work, is when there was a true leadership buy-in, and I'm going to describe what that looks like, that true leadership buy-in. So from a leadership perspective, there is a need to firstly understand agility, and I think our role in this is really important as Agile coaches. I think the conversation's more about not coming to training, I sheep dip you in that training, but more about a coaching conversation of where it is you want to be, how does it look like, and what do they understand about agility? And it's drip feeding in that process. Again, it's also looking at the data. What is your data saying? And where do you want that to change? And so, yes, we change small pieces along the way, but with the whole in mind. And so in this current organization, which I haven't talked about in the beginning, I asked, where do you want to be? 18 months, 2 years. And the objective was, we want to move towards a DevOps approach. Okay, nice. So now I'm kind of building the elements to get them to that space. So the strategy is then, using that models and the components I was talking about, the strategy then to advise them is then you will need to start getting used to decentralizing decisions, right? You need to now look at how we do our processes, and we need to lean out those processes, whether it's change management or transition into service, and how does BAU collaborate with delivery. And so these are the conversations. So it's targeted conversation about agility and targeted knowledge building about agility, rather than this is safe, this is Scrum, right? Because that's when you meet the leader's needs, and that's when the buy-in kicks in. So from an agility perspective, as an Agile coach, we also have this responsibility of looking in to the organization. And I guess some organizations we'll talk about later on, but you do know you can't make that influence, you can't make much difference, and it goes so against your very core and ethics that you have to move on. But every time I'm in an organization, the first things I tend to do is that discovery. I am nosy. I like people to call it curiosity, but I am super nosy. And it's not just about what the people are doing and how they're doing it. I need to understand what the loyalties are and how bias is working in this place, because there are quite blind loyalties sometimes. And looking at what is the pains, what are your problems, and how do you collect it? How do you understand those problems? Because a lot of the time when you move the pains away from a person and blame and department and you have your data, people are much more open to having those honest conversations. And so, again, looking at it from the whole, it's how you direct and support and guide that organization. Like I said in the beginning, I am walking with you in the dark until you meet light. How do I get them to that space of light is the questions that we need to ask ourselves. I'm sure we do, and I tend to ask myself. Unfortunately, I do need to speak on something here. Very small number of us, we do need to challenge ourselves and question our integrity at some points. There are the dark coaching. There is an approach where I did it in my previous organization. I'm going to stick it here. It will work. Unfortunately, that doesn't work. And if it does work, it works temporarily. There's no ownership. There's no guidance. And so I always ask my peers, colleagues, friends, what is our intention here? Is it an intent to keep us in the business, or is our intent to do good? So this is really important space to talk about that. So knowledge and data, looking at the whole as alongside the pieces is really key. And so from a leadership perspective, when I got interviewed by the CIO and the director in this organization, I did say everything sits with leadership. Here, I need you to perform. And if you are not going to perform, if you don't have this vision, if you don't have this love, if you don't have this connection and support of your peers, because this is also really important, you know, you can have a fabulous forward-thinking, servant leadership, visionary director, but if the peers are completely different, command and controllers, don't want to engage with agility, well, it's not going to work. It's a social movement from a leadership perspective as well. So all leaders have to communicate that way. And I said, please don't invite me. Please do not invite me, because I am 21 plus and I have seen it. And I'm tired. I'm tired, and so please don't offer me the opportunity if you don't have the vision and the heart and the passion and the engagement of your peers. And that gauntlet has been absolutely fascinating, because I've been with them for the last 6 months, and every challenge they have took on board. And interestingly enough, they are actually talking it and walking it, and so. You know, my directors model the behaviors of asking the right questions, are very open to now decentralizing and letting go. They're also demonstrating, it's interesting, our leadership team, our directors now started having retros, talking about what we can do, and having work in Kanban and talking about our way. So it's interesting, is that modeling and that whole behavior is coming out, and I love it, because I guess there's something about them that were ready for it. You know, most people go, well, what did you do differently? And no, I haven't done. I was always the same. It's just the community is ready for that, and have the appetite and have the authenticity are willing to engage in it. And that's really important to see. And it comes with also coaching, and that's peer coaching. You know, I always believe that when I'm coaching my director, he's also coaching me, and there's that level of respect and authenticity. You know, the conversations here is always about, for me, it's about reflection. It's about ethics. I do say ego is great. Look, ego is healthy, right? But too much of it is dangerous. And it's knowing when you're working with your ego. It's always healthy to know, oh, yeah, I just needed a little bit of rah-rah for me. And so intentions, it's always being important, is knowing the intent. And every morning I am thinking on what are my intentions for today and how am I going to operate in this space, because you have to enable people to feel that you're part of their team, but you are also constantly on the periphery and you're still an outsider. And so I reflect now in action with the directors, and one of them I said, I feel like I've been kicking you too much in the last 2 weeks, going, I think you need to stop here. Oh, you could do this differently. And I said, I'm going to step back for a little bit. And he went, no, keep going. Don't change. I think I can see where we're going with it. And so having that psychological safety and trust and respect as peers really works, because that's when you can reflect in action. And having the presence, it's really hard when you're continuously coaching, reading body language, facilitating really intense workshops and meetings, and you're constantly taking it in. And so I tend to do quite a bit of meditation and yoga and have some private space, because you also need to be ready and present in the moment, because there are times where you do get that message of, do you have 5 minutes? And that 5 minutes is actually a really important 1 hour that people are just about now ready to talk about. So it's being present for that. And also from the leadership perspective, it's about reflecting. And I always say, well, how far have we come? Look at it in the last 3 months, and celebrating with them. And I do postcards and, postcards from the teams to show where we come and what we've achieved as a collective. And the stories, there's no rank ratings. There's no big counting. It's more about, look, we've had our servant leadership cafe. We have talked about innovation. We've had our innovation workshop, and this is what we have changed. We are now going to do this. And so stories of people sharing what they are and who they are. I've taken them on an Agile flight as their captain about what agility is and what the role of an Agile coach is, so they could feel and understand it, rather than give them the abstract context thing that doesn't work. So having reflection is really great, and intent, holding leadership intention is also important. And in some instances, it's a very difficult conversation on where are we going here? What is your intention? And presence. I mean, they're super busy and you can see them sometimes and you're like, stay with me. Don't look at the emails that's pinging in, and trying to get them to take time out and take some of that work out of their diary. And so that's a development. It's going to take time, but it's the openness to have those conversations is important. I think so. The servant leadership is key to me, and currently now I see that in terms of the work I do and how that leadership is working. But one of the things is that shared ownership as a collective, as a community. I do not have my name on anything. The strategy was presented at our conference by our directors. The roadmap events that we are doing is being sent by my CIO. The leadership hot seat is videos, or when I asked the teams what does Agile mean to me, I got a lot of the people in the organization within IT, UK IT, talk about what agility means to them. I didn't do anything there. Falling Campfire, we're starting from November, talking about failure, how it felt, what we've learned. And I asked around who would be able to or willing to speak on this. And I have 2 leaders telling the story. Servant leadership work cafes that I host. They are every month, and they are peer coaching. I introduce them to a coaching tool. They pick a theme and they talk to each other. I don't own anything, and that is the message I want to share with you. The emphasis here is to embed the change, to have people feel that change, and they are walking with it themselves. And adaptability is a key here as well, because let's be agnostic is what I champion, because the practices and tools will fall in line, will come in once people connect to the message and the values. And then I say, let's have a supermarket sweep and let's choose. yeah, okay, you're a business as usual teams, or you're implementing something. Have you tried Kanban for size? These are the 5 things you need to do. That's all I say to them, right? Come and have a look. Oh, you're developing something. Have you had a look at Scrum? Come and try it for size and see what it feels like. And so that adaptability is really important rather than following it by script, because that kills the energy. Last but never the least, I think we, as a collective, are change agents. It's a very difficult journey. It's never an easy one. I always say tomorrow is a better day. And yeah, some days it is, some days it isn't. And so I would say forgiveness is important to me. Forgiving myself is really important. I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. I'll never know everything. So coming to terms with that, parking the ego and forgiving others. People are at different stages of their knowledge and development or thought processes. And when the control kicks in and the conflict kicks in, it's knowing that what's underneath is fear and discomfort of not knowing where their future is going to be with this agenda coming in. I think there's an element of also knowing yourself. For me, learning who I am has given me the freedom to let go of the fear. And I think, about 12 years ago, I had some coaching and I thought about, well, who the hell am I kind of conversations. And initially for me, it was about status and goals and reputation and that fear of not having enough and letting go all of that. Actually, you know what, money is a bouncing ball, but letting go of all of that, something much more magical happened, that I found the love of what I do. And now it's irrelevant where I work. It's irrelevant, which company is, as global as I am in this organization, it's irrelevant. For me, it's about my contribution and doing what I love the most. And so I would say, if you haven't found the love, please go look for it. If you have, please protect it. And so I want to leave you by saying that you are unique, and that's something else I figured out in my time. Nobody thinks like you, nobody looks like you, nobody feels like you. And so that uniqueness is one to be celebrated, and to know that you are enough. You are enough to walk others in the dark until they meet light. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much. Great, wonderful presentation. And this is Nanaya here. One of the most soothing and very nice presentations I've heard in a while. Please, if you have any question, you can put it in the chat or you can put it in the Q&A. Our wonderful speaker will respond to it. But thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
So please, you can put it in the chat. I can see some messages in the chat. Great delivery, many thanks, Hodan.
Thank you.
A lot of nice stuff for you. Love these visuals. Wow. Nice. Great delivery to more positive feedback for you in the chat.
Thank you. So I've really enjoyed myself, and I hope I will be part of this community for as long as possible. I wanted to just talk about, obviously, Nana and obviously Robin are my 2 spiritual brothers I met along the way as we're walking to this journey. And I always say there are reasons why you meet people along the way, and you collect these people that actually, when you're in the flow of love, that's what always happens as well. And so they're my spiritual brothers. I don't know about Dad, you make me sound really young, but I'm definitely 21 plus and nothing more. And then I also meet the intellectual side of things, the social concept, because I'm studying psychology, and I've, Lazaro is another one, Lazaro Wolf, and he's a much more philosophy thinker as well, and he's always challenging my thoughts, and that's quite interesting to work with. Sue's Osi, she's my Nigerian sister. She brings some magic too, and we feel it's bizarre. Like I will ring her and she goes, "Oh, it feels like I was thinking about you and you rang me, sister." And that's how we kind of connect. She's also an incredible woman. So I don't really operate on my own. So find your networks, connect with people. It's a small one, but people you trust, because it's so much joy. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it, Zainab. And I'm going to be following you for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So I'll hand back over to Nana.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So many wonderful kind of feedback for you. Good leadership, suiting, probably will keep you forever. We're not going to let you go again on this community and on this platform. So for next year, definitely, Nana Aban will say you're doing a physical conference, and it'd be great to have you in Ghana. So thank you, everybody. I don't see any further questions.